Hey, it's Kevin. Thanks so much for coming by for another No BS social media chat. The other day I was just sitting around my office scrolling around on the internet and I had this epiphany. And I don't know how it hit me, but I realized that working with social media, tending your social media, is much like gardening, much like farming, if you will. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have necessarily a green thumb in social media to do it well, but there is no one set strategy that works all the time. There's a lot of weather issues. There's a lot of stormy weather in the world of social media, as well as there is in gardening. And everybody has a little bit different way they garden. Now, I'm not the biggest green thumb because, to be honest with you, I spend most of my time behind a computer. But I know about gardening, and I have friends who are great gardeners. And one thing I've noticed is nobody does it the same way. Some people are very big on they fertilize at a certain time. Some people are very much, they watch the rainfall. They make sure to tend their crops. They make sure to keep the vermin out. They make sure to, keep all the weeds out and everything like that. And then I have some friends who just, have a certain period of time where it's like after the second frost or after this, they plant their crops and then they don't water and they let them go and they don't worry about the weeds necessarily and they just kind of let happen what may happen. And they have good crops sometimes and they have bad crops sometimes. And I think that's the same thing with social media. We can have good and bad. Right now, because of the political turmoil that's all across social media, because of the U.S. presidential election still wreaking havoc on social media numbers, well, it's kind of like stormy weather, if you will. We've had a rainy season, if you will. Now, we could have some dry spells going on for a while, but you got to kind of play for that. You got to prepare for that, and you got to learn how to deal with it. And at the same time, there's no one way to tend to your social media following. There's no one way to grow your fan base. There's no one way to engage with your fans. It's different in each situation. Much like it is when you're gardening, you don't garden the same way, we'll say here in Tennessee, as you would in California, as you would in New York, as you would in Michigan. You have unique instances. You have different kinds of plants you have to put out. And so I think there's an interesting correlation between the two. And I thought, man, I can't be the first person to have thought of this. And if I'm not, I couldn't find anything online. I found a lot of people talking about gardening on social media. Found a lot of people talking about social media on gardening boards, but didn't find anybody who kind of thought that social media was a lot like gardening. So again, you don't have to be a green thumb. You can have some up and down. But the key is making sure to tend to your crops, making sure to tend to your plants, making sure you have a procedure that works for you. And if you do have a storm, if you do have a dry spell, if you have an infestation of vermin, whether it be, I guess vermin in social media could be, internet trolls or it could be outside sources that you can't control. If you have those, well, you just learn how to deal with them. You kind of take a step back, or sometimes you just have to say, hey, you know what? Well, those crops didn't come in this time. We'll try again next year. We'll try again another time. Or you go in a different direction. I mean, I have friends who grow certain kinds of plants all the time, and then all of a sudden they just stop having luck with that, and so they start growing something else, and well, that prospers, and they bring the other plants back, and especially when you're growing vegetables and things like that. I've had friends who've had great cucumber crops and grow zucchinis and things like that, and then all of a sudden they can't do it. And so then they plant radishes or something like that, or they plant mint or something just bizarre. And all of a sudden that changes the soil makeup and it brings it back. Well, think about social media the same way, where if you do one thing for a long time a certain way and then all of a sudden it stops working, well, don't do it that way. It doesn't mean stop doing it completely, but just don't do it that way and try a different approach. Try a different tack, try a different crop, if you will, and see how that works. Again, experiment, have some fun with it, and more importantly, tend to your garden each and every day. That's the important key here. That's kind of where I all kind of stumbled upon this, is with social media. We talk about, whether it's 5 extra minutes a day, but day in, day out, you have to have a rhythm, you have to have a routine. I think it's important with social media as it is with gardening. So I guess I don't have a green thumb when it comes to outdoor gardening and plants or things like that. I'm a city boy. But I have a green thumb in social media, at least I like to think so. Want to talk more about it? Phone number, email, all coming up here at the end of the video. You can find us online too, intensitysocial.com, intensitymedia.com as well. You can find the videos on Facebook, you can find the videos on YouTube. Wherever you found us today, we'll just come on back next week. We'll be here. We'd love to reach out. We'd love to talk with you. Am I crazy? Oh, we already know the answer to that. See you next week with another No BS social media chat. Thanks. Tend to those crops.